In Sparks, Nevada, on March 29, 2024, around 1:39 p.m., a local police officer pulled over a Ford Expedition driving without license plates somewhere in the 1700 block of Greenbrae Drive. As the officer approached the driver's window, the driver pulled out a handgun and shot the officer in the head and neck area. The driver then sped away, only to collide with another vehicle at the intersection of Greenbrae and Rock Boulevard. After the crash, the driver abandoned the car and fled on foot. Shortly after, dispatch received reports of someone jumping fences in the 1400 block of Greenbrae Drive and Prospect Avenue. Officers from the Sparks Police Department, Reno Police Department, and the Washoe County Sheriff's Office searched the area on foot. Luckily for all parties, the entire ordeal was caught on camera, and it's a good thing it was too, because the shooter would go on to ambush the same police officers 2 more times. His location was tracked by drone cameras, but it wasn't enough to keep him from disappearing into the maze of suburbia. The incident started like any other traffic stop. The responding officer turns his body camera on and approaches the Ford Expedition, expecting nothing too out of the ordinary. Then, like a jump scare in the newest Hollywood horror blockbuster, the driver jolts up and shoots a handgun out his window, firing at the officer at point-blank range. After taking a bullet to his vest and getting grazed on the neck, the officer retreats from the vehicle and draws his own handgun, firing shots at the Expedition as it screeches ahead, breaking the back window as the suspect flees the scene. This initial ambush was also captured by the police cruiser's dash cam, showcasing just how close the officer came to a headshot execution. The officer barely had enough time to call in "shots fired" on the radio before the next chapter unfolded. In the background of the body cam footage, you can see the Expedition speed past a stop sign and through an intersection, just as a U-Haul box truck driving south does the same. The truck then T-bones the getaway car, the impact clearly audible as the officer watches from afar. With no other choice until backup arrives, the Sparks Nevada cop engages in a foot pursuit, huffing and puffing his way through injury to respond not only to the car crash, but also to figure out where the active shooter ended up. At the intersection, the boxcar has stopped in its tracks, while the suspect's Ford Expedition sits sideways a bit up the road, abandoned and alone. An eyewitness off camera informs the officer of the shooter's movements post-collision, but the officer doesn't pursue. Instead, he scans the imminent neighborhood, theorizing the suspect hopped the fence and went into hiding. He then calls for a medic as backup arrives. As the shooter maneuvered his way through the suburbs, homeowners started to become aware something sinister was happening in their streets. One incredibly unlucky family was greeted by the source of the chaos himself when the suspect broke into an occupied residence to hide from the lawman hot on his tail. The moment this family contacted authorities was captured by the 911 dispatch.
911, what's the address emergency? Hello, 911.
Yeah. Give her over the gun in her house. Is it ever with a gun in her house?
There's a guy in your house with a gun?
The exact wording is hard to make out as the conversation is quite muffled, but terrifying nonetheless. You can hear how unsure the man making the call is while on the line with the operator, trying not to upset the person standing in his house holding a deadly weapon. The police quickly intercept the home invasion, and the family inside relays as much information as they can. They state the suspect ran through their backyard, came into the house, held a woman at gunpoint, and then ran back outside. The family believed he entered another unsuspecting residence, however they couldn't pinpoint exactly which direction he jumped the fence. Sparks police then received a 911 call reporting that an adult black male had broken into a home in the 1400 block of Prospect Avenue. The caller, who had been cooking in the kitchen when the suspect entered with a gun, informed dispatch that she used a knife to injure him, causing him to run out the back door. The officers continued canvassing the neighborhood, establishing a perimeter along with giving a shelter-in-place order for the surrounding residents. As they did this, the perpetrator snuck into another woman's home and kidnapped her, holding her hostage so that she might drive him out of the neighborhood undetected. At around 2 p.m., a moment of serendipity greeted law enforcement. As they were conducting door-to-door surveillance, the cops approached a white SUV attempting to leave the neighborhood, located at the 1300 block in Prospect. When the driver's side window rolled down, the cops asked the woman why she was leaving, having absolutely no idea this woman was being held at gunpoint by the suspect hiding in the trunk. The driver admits they aren't sure why the police are there, but listens to their shelter-in-place order, leaving the gunman to scramble for his next move. The Sparks PD officers then went to the front door of the house where the woman driving the white SUV lived, based on reports coming into dispatch that she was the one who called in a kidnapping. When the same woman answered the door, all hell broke loose, as recorded by 3 separate cops. Take a look.
Hello, police. Get her up! Get her up! Hey, stand up. Are you hurt? No. Get her up! Get her up! Get her up! Get her up! I got you. I got you. Huh? I got her. I got her.
Hand over here. There, I got one hand. You get the other. Let's go. Come on, man. Let's go. Let's get it behind the car. Stay right here, man.
Get her out! Get her out! Get her out! Are you hurt? Where is he? I don't know. He's in back away.
As the old woman fell to the ground, the suspect started shooting at the officers from inside the house, hitting a Washoe County deputy in his bulletproof vest. Other officers quickly rescued both the deputy and the woman while under fire, dragging her across concrete until she was safely behind a police car. During the chaos, a second officer from Sparks was also shot by the suspect, but he managed to leave the scene on his own. The suspect at large, who had then survived not 1 but 2 ambushes against the pursuing lawman, left that house belonging to the elderly woman and went into another home where a different elderly woman lived. This woman hid inside her house to avoid the suspect, running into her bathroom and blocking the door so that no one could come inside. It was now 2:15 p.m. and the elderly hostage pulled her phone out and dialed 911, the call being recorded at the dispatch center once again. Listen closely.
What's the address of the emergency? Okay, and tell me exactly what happened.
Somebody has broken in my house and barricaded my bathroom. The police have got the street blocked off. He's got it right down the front door and coming out.
Okay. He's barricaded in the bathroom?
No, I'm in the bathroom. He's on my side.
Does he know you're in there?
I don't know, maybe.
What's your name?
I'm scared to death.
As the shooter terrorizes his next victim, this specific leg of the incident is all captured by the eye in the sky. The local authorities utilized a drone camera to track down the suspect as he hopped fences and snuck across property lines at will, and not with the stealth he probably wanted. These crimes happened in the middle of the day, without the shadows of the night cloaking his movements, giving the police an unquestionable advantage. We can see in this bird's eye view the suspect started his suburban crawl by climbing out of the window of one house before hopping the fence and barricading himself in the backyard of another. If you look to the street on the left side of the frame, you'll see a series of police cruisers lined up with a slew of armed officers positioned directly behind them, at the ready and prepared to engage. It's hard to make out in the video itself, but the suspect and officers take turns firing off a few rounds in the general direction of each other. At this point, the main objective for authorities is to get the stranded elderly woman out of her bathroom, out of her home, and as far from the danger as possible. As soon as the suspect disappears behind the storage shed on the residence's patio, the drone shot cuts to the thrilling moment when the woman ran out of her own home, hands up, pleading for the officers to eliminate the threat. We see her taken by one of the armed officers and positioned behind another police cruiser, officially in safe hands. However, the bulk of the action wasn't over. The shooter was still at large and showed no signs of slowing down or waving the white flag. According to reports, the officers managed to enter a standstill with the perpetrator and enforce a temporary ceasefire. At this point, SWAT units arrived on the scene, along with an official negotiator, and for 5 hours on end, the shooter denied the negotiator's offers, unwilling to make many concessions even as the sun started to set. Police asked the perp's mother to record a message for him to be played over a loudspeaker in a last-ditch effort to avoid further bloodshed. In her message, she said, "I love you, go to heaven, be with God." The police decided not to use her recording, but she expressed that she knew he would not leave the house alive. He'd rather be dead than go back to prison, she said. Her son was barricaded inside, with drones overhead and snipers around the area, after having just shot 3 police officers. It was clear that there'd be no negotiating with this particular individual, so if they were going to get him out of the suburbs and remove the threat against innocent bystanders, the only solution left was using deadly force. At 7:30 p.m., the officers rearmed themselves and went inside the woman's garage, where the gunman had been hiding throughout negotiations. Unfortunately for the pursuing officers, this wasn't any old garage. It was more like a storage unit, packed to the brim with boxes, cabinets, and other odds and ends crammed together like a hoarder's nest. It was pure luck for the runaway gunman. Surely he could blend in with the web of disarray and finally escape the clutches of the police. Just like in the movies though, the bad guy rarely gets away unscathed, and in this particular instance, he pays the ultimate price. A streamline of armed cops enter the storage area with weapons at the ready, flashlights pointed straight ahead to pinpoint their invisible man. One unidentified officer points out the blood spray on the refrigerator in the back, remnants of the shootout stalemate. In a matter of seconds though, the stalemate turns into a third and final ambush. Just as the leading officer's flashlight reveals deeper into the garage, the gunman makes himself known and fires directly at the SWAT team. An officer lets out an expletive before the return fire cascades down upon the suspect. The camera pulls back just enough so that we don't see where the bullets are hitting, but based on the amount of shots fired and the number of officers firing, the results are about as confirmed as they possibly can be. The suspect was identified as 34-year-old Anthony Wade. He was armed with a .40 caliber semi-automatic handgun equipped with an extended magazine. The 2 Sparks police officers and the Washoe County deputy who were injured received medical treatment and were later released. In the days after the incident took place, more body cam footage surfaced, along with evidence photos depicting all of the damage the shootouts caused. One officer had his protective hearing equipment shattered. Another cop had his flashlight shot at. Multiple officers were hit themselves, however their vests took the brunt of the damage. All of the law enforcement agencies at large were incredibly lucky the material objects were the only thing severely destroyed. It's not every day you see 0 innocent casualties in an 8.5-hour-long standoff that includes 3 separate ambushes. Luckily, there was enough video taken to make sure this miraculous moment stands the test of time.